Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I want to show you how I set up my fan curves on my PC. Reason being is because icue kind of messed up and I had to go ahead and do the repair part of it, and it reset all my stuff. So I thought maybe today I'd go ahead and show you how I set up my fan curves. So, like I said, icue messed up and erased my stuff, right? So I had to go ahead and still use icue because I'm so far invested into it. I don't want to go to anything else because I'm stubborn like that. So click an IQ, and then you got to go to cooling. And these are all my fans, right? So I pre-labeled my fans. For me, this is my easiest way. I have the traditional setup on the case. I have, where my AIO's up top, the radiator. Then I got my three front fans, and then I got my three bottom fans, and I got my exhaust fan, right? So I labeled them pretty simple for me. Bottom middle, bottom back, bottom front for my GPU and air just coming up. And then I got my front middle, front bottom, and my front top. And those are the three that I kind of change up the most, and I'll tell you why, at least my reasoning. And then exhaust, that's pretty self-explanatory. But then I do have a random VRM fan, which is the pump cap to your AIO. Well, mine's actually in the shape of a fan, and I made a video about it a while back. So if you want to check that video out, please go ahead. But that fan alone right there actually helps cool my left side of my RAM stick. So I keep it in there because it actually functions. For the VRMs, it does all right, but for some reason, it really cools that left sticks, keeps it like quite a bit cooler. So I keep it in there for that reason. But then I have my AIO middle, back, and front fan. So, all right, so let's get this started. So to set up custom, right? I'm gonna rename that AIO. That way I just know that's setting up for AIO. So now that it's set up, as you can see, I like to keep mine at the base right around 35. And then I'll set up the next one at 40 degrees, right around 42. Now, some people get into real big science about this. I kind of get the general direction of what I want. There is one sweet spot that I always try to put in there, and I'll show you that in a second. So at 50, I do about 50. And the sweet spot I'm talking to you about is right here, right at 60. So most of the games that I play, I noticed with my 9950 X3D that they hit right around 55 to 62-ish degrees. And for a lot of fans, and I do have 140 millimeter fans, 55% of the fan's speed is pretty quiet. So I do like mine slightly on the quieter side, but I don't mind a little noise. Some people like it as quiet as possible. Some people don't care because they wear headphones and they just ramp up the air as much as they can. But it for me, I kind of like in between, like a balanced almost, but slightly quieter. So I go ahead and I just set that up. Like for my fans, I use the Corsair IQ Link fans, 140 millimeter. I noticed that right around 57 at 60 degrees, it still gives me the optimum cooling, but it's still pretty quiet. So I do hear a little bit of air going through, but it's not that big a deal for me because I'm more focused on the game anyways by then, so I hardly even notice it. And then from there, I kind of just step it up a little bit. So right around 68 degrees, it goes up to 65, and then I kind of just ramp it up from there because if it starts, and for my PC, if it starts getting in the 70s, because I do have an undervolt on it and everything, that's pretty much where a rough guesstimation where I keep it. Now I do tweak it a little bit as I'm playing because for me the best test is while you're playing games or if you're video editing. So but right here, this is where I have it set up. And now, one thing a lot of people forget is the sensors, right? So right now it's set for coolant temp. And my coolant temp is, I'm checking my Xenon Edge here, 32 degrees Celsius, right? So 32 degrees Celsius, it's pretty cold temp. But the thing is I want it on AMD's 9950 X3D package. So that's the actual temperature that the CPU is at, and not the coolant, but the CPU. And I want to keep the CPU as cool as possible so I can keep the clocks up as high as possible for as long as possible. So I click on that, And as you see, the bar changed right over here. So I'm hitting right around 54 degrees. So now, in theory, is my fans should be hitting right around 49 to 51% ish right there. So now that I set up this AIO setting, I'm gonna go to my AIO front and set it up there. AIO back, set it up there, and AIO middle, set it up there. So like I said, I set up my AIO curve to run off the 3D package for my CPU. And so now, as you can see, these ramped up a little bit to what I have set it to. So now it's going to be passing more air through my AIO and ultimately keeping my CPU cooler. And right now my CPU is sitting at 53 because I'm running a couple of programs at once. So of course it's going to go up. Typically my CPU runs right around 41 to 43 degrees on idle, depending on what I'm doing. And then when I'm running some programs, it jumps to about 49 to 53-ish degrees Celsius. So that's the first one I have set up. Now for my bottom fans, those really cool my GPU and just add more air to the case, right? So I'm going to set up and rename. I'm just going to name this one bottom fans. And on for that one, I'm going to go ahead and change the sensor to 9950 X3D. I'm sorry, not 5090 temp 1. And so what that happens is when my GPU starts being used, it's going to ramp up those bottom fans to help cool them more, right? So it's pretty much those fans are feeding my 5090s fans, which in turn keeps the GPU cooler, right? So that one, I don't have to go as high because those are my smaller 120 fans at the bottom. And so 120 fans are generally a little louder than the bigger 140 fans, but not by much. You can't really tell unless you're really hardcore into that kind of stuff. So I set that up to be right around 30. And that change is more gradual because my 5090 Astral is a pretty cool has pretty good cooling in it. So you're going to it'll cool itself pretty well. So by doing this, I'm just going to feed some air into it. So right around, if it gets to about 60 degrees, I'll have 46%, and that's going to stay pretty quiet. And then just for giggles, I almost cussed, my bad. I'm just going to ramp it up right there. And then from there, I set it to the 5090 temp 1. So it's going to stay pretty much right there until it's in use. My next one is my front case fans. Now these fans I do change up from time to time, and I'll tell you why. Because, like for instance, if I go to my front bottom, that's pretty much going to directly hit my GPU. So I don't really care too much about that fan. It just adds more air to it. So I'm going to rename that, and I'm going to name it front fans. And for that one, I do keep that one a little more on the higher side, right around 38 at 30 degrees. I am you got to maintain positive airflow in your case, right? And that means you want to put more air in to your case than it's escaping it through your AIO fans and through your exhaust fans. So you kind of got to have a slightly positive pressure, right? So now there's a lot of people with a lot of theories on there, and some people may think I'm wrong and other people may agree with me, but ultimately it's what you want for your PC case, okay? As long as you have good, cool air running through your AIO radiator to keep your CPU cool, and then enough air running through your case to get out through the exhaust fan, that way it keeps your GPU cooler, right? So this one I do keep kind of similar, right around 60 degrees, because that's where the sweet spot for my setup is. So right there. So if I hit 60, I want about 57. And as you see, I have the gradual buildup, right? And it slowly goes up. And then there, set that up there. I very rarely ever hit in the 80s with my setup. So that's about what I have things set to right there. And then for there, I'm going to have that set to the 5090 also. And then go back up here and put the bottom, not bottom, I'm sorry, front middle. Nope, I'm sorry, front bottom. There it is. So that's going to start reflecting that, but it's going to stay low because I'm not using my GPU much right there. So I'll do one special, and this is, I'm going to rename this to my front top fan. And the reason being is my front top fan pretty much is feeding air into my front top AIO fan, you could say. And that's just physics. I mean, you got the two ones that are pretty much, here's one fan, here's the other fan. So the fan blowing here and this one's sucking in. So it's just, air is just going to go up right there, right? Maybe I'll make a diagram if I can ever learn how to do that. I like to keep that one a little on the faster side because it does kind of help feed the air into my AIO area. And the returns are probably very negligible, but it's just, it's just something I like to do. So I like to keep that fan generally a little faster because it is a, and people are like, oh, you might wear out your fans the way you have it set up. Well, I'd rather replace a $100 set of fans than a $900 CPU, right? Or whatever. So there we go. And not to mention, with my bigger 140 fans, I can put it right around 57 to 60 degrees and it stays quieter. So for this one, since it is my front top fan that helps feed my AIO, I go ahead and I set it for the 9950X3D package. So that's going to be a little different. So that's going to spin a little faster. And it's going to feed air into that area, right? Now, some of the air still escapes from the AIO fans and it still goes into the case. So I'm not really losing out on anything there too. So, and then from there, I'll just probably go up here and set it up, which I already did. Cool. Sorry, losing track. All right, from there, set up another one. Rename. And I'm going to make this one my exhaust. And the reason why is my exhaust is going to be different because I need this to be slightly less than most of my other ones. That way I can maintain a positive air pressure inside the case as best as possible, right? So I'm going to generally raise these little by little until it hits a certain point. There we go. And that way it gets all the warm air out of the case. Now, this one I'm going to set up to my 5090. I set that a little lower. And then I'm going to go up to my exhaust and set it up as exhaust. And there we go. And then my front top. I forgot to set that up, didn't I? Front top fan. There we go. Set that there. And then front middle. So that one I like to keep. So if you haven't noticed, I like to keep my front fans a little faster than normal because it's the main feeding, it's the main fans that feed air into the case, right? So I'm gonna do another plus, rename, front middle. And that one, so this one feeds the most air in, so I want to keep that a little more on the positive side, a little higher. And I'm going to gradually feed that one up. And right around my sweet spot that I like, 60 degrees, I'm going to put that at 57, 58. Keep it at 59, it's fine. And then from there, go up. So this yellow bar here, as you see, as this goes up, the fan's going to keep increasing in speed as the temperature goes this way, right? So Right now, that you see 50%. So right now it's barely hitting, probably right around, like I set it up right here, 42 to 43% of the fan speed. Now that middle fan's going to start feeding more air straight in the middle of the case, and that's where I like to have it, right? So, and I have it set up for not coolant temp, but I will set it up for, on that one, the 5090. And then find my front middle. I love how icue doesn't really change up the stuff here. And there we are. So with that being a little faster, and now it's setting up, it's going to start pushing more air through. See, right there, it already started getting there, going up, right? Did I not set up the bottom front? No, I did not. So set that bottom, set that bottom, set that bottom. And that's pretty much it, guys. Now, I'm sorry, right here, my pump fan. So I'm going to keep that balanced. And then my icue Link 420 Titan fan, I'm going to keep that balanced. Now this is my AIO fan, right? So I'm going to go ahead and keep that one at balance, because between balanced and extreme, there's no big difference really. I mean, you might get a degree out of it, and if you're trying to max it out as best as possible, go ahead. The pump can get a little on the louder side, so I found that balanced is the best of both worlds. It's still pretty quiet, and you get plenty of cooling out of it. So I just keep that at balanced. And then right here, that's my VRM one I explained to you earlier. I pretty much just keep that at balance too, because that thing just spins and it cools all the VRMs around the motherboard. And then as a side effect, it actually hits the left mother stick that doesn't get RAM stick that the other stick is blocking the air from the other fan. So it kind of helps keep it cool. So I like that thing. But that's it, guys. That's my fan curves. That's pretty much a rough way of how I set it up. And beforehand, I had my temps right around 46, 47 degrees on idle. And then I did a slight undervolt on my CPU. And then when I set up the fan curves, that really knocked it down to 41 to 43 degrees, and it increased my performance overall. So, but that's how I set up my fan curves. If you have any suggestions or maybe any improvements that you think I can make, just let me know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe. And maybe I'll make another video with even more in depth than this, but I just wanted to show you through icue on how I do it, because I use icue. But there's other programs out there that do it just as well, if not even better, like Fan Curve is one app that's pretty good you can get online. So, but that's it, guys. I'll talk to you guys later, and thank you for watching. Bye.